Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. Happy February. This is the month of Valentine's Day. Is that a good one for you? This is the month of my 50th birthday. So we have to make it a good one. Square peg, circle hole, because that's a big one. That's a big one. Oh dear, it's good to be back with you. I was just thinking as I picked up my coffee cup that some nice person wrote on one of the last videos, "Oh, that disgusting slurping you're doing. I can't even bear to listen to it." So I thought, here's a special one for you. So irritating. I wrote back, why don't you sit on your hands for a little while until you get used to using the computer? And then I deleted the comment because I thought, why? It's whack-a-weasel. It's whack-a-mole, isn't it? I mean, they pop up all over the place. I am so happy to be back with you. It has been some busy times and some rough times, for sure. Let me say hi to all the buddies who are out there now. Cynthia, good to see you. Good morning. I am well, and I am so surprised that I am the only one in the household who wasn't terribly sick. As you probably know, I was very busy with book deadlines, and I got really backed into a corner time-wise last week, just not enough hours in the day thing. And I realized when I was waking up at 3 a.m. to start work that was just, life had gotten too crazy. But then I was ready to come back for coffee time, or at least I wanted to run it at home, because we got hit with the blizzard over the weekend too. And we got about a foot, maybe a foot and a half of snow, that kind of thing, but it was fine. But the thing that was really bad was the kids got very sick. Teddy got very sick the night of the snowstorm, and I was sleeping with him that night, and I was, just not sleeping. And he went to bed at 100, and he must have got up to like 105 plus, because when he went back down to 100, I thought, man, you're ice cold now. This is great. And then he finally dropped later in the morning to 97. And then yesterday, Joss was terribly sick, different sick. But she was sitting with a bucket all day, if you know what I mean. It was a rough one for her. Poor little thing. She weighs like nothing, and it wasn't a good one. So I was fully expecting that this morning it was going to be my turn. I must have the constitution. I'm not going to say it because Murphy's always listening. I guess I was lucky. I'll just say that. Everything is a lot better. Becky, good to see you. I'm excited to run it. It's so sad to miss these times because for me too, this is often the part of the day where I do my only socializing. So, talking to kids is great, and it's my favorite thing, but talking to grown-ups is also nice, and I don't always get the chance to do that, and certainly not about rug cooking stuff and art stuff and all of that. So I have missed our time hugely too. Mom, good to see you. Coffee time is back. Robin, good to see you. Me too. I ran last Monday, so it was just the 1 week, but it does seem like a really long time, doesn't it? Do you hear an echo? Do I hear an echo? Oh, I see what you mean. It's a bit of a cheer. I was thinking, God, do I hear an echo? Because sometimes I'm having these kinds of mechanical problems I can't figure. Crystal, great to see you. Sun shining bright in Nova Scotia. I am so glad. That sounds wonderful. Linda H. in Mass, great to see you. Catalina, great to see you. I still owe you a long email. I am so glad that you're there. Karen, good morning in Colorado. Temperatures dropping by 30 degrees in a blizzard. Oh no, that sounds like Groundhog Day. It sounds like a few days ago here. Oh man, fasten your seatbelt, buckle in, get cozy, right? All of that stuff. Good luck. I hope it's not as bad as it sounds. Kirsten, great to see you in Vermont. And Donna, you're there with your cinnamon tea. Oh, that sounds really nice. Really nice. I couldn't even make my blueberry coffee this morning because I had to share the pot. And for some reason, most people don't think that they like flavored coffees, do they? Because they think like, oh, that's too sweet for me. And it's actually not sweet. It's 99% aroma and atmosphere, and it tastes like a regular coffee. So because I was sharing a pot this morning, I wasn't able, so I've just got plain old coffee, and cinnamon tea sounds really exotic right now. Tara, great to see you. Thank you for your message. I love you. You are always so thoughtful. Janice, good morning. Cold, good and cold in Minnesota, I bet. Barbara, great to see you. And Joyce, good afternoon in Pennsylvania. Beverly, good to see you. Joan in Wisconsin, everybody's on. I'm so glad. Kathleen, great to see you. I owe you some messages too. We got to get going on our bags. Slurp away. Oh God, I'm telling you, people. You know, I know that when you're a grown up, you're not supposed to let things bother you as much as I still do. I've gotten a lot better over the years, but I'll tell you, I read that comment, and when I inevitably woke up in the middle of the night, that was the first thing I thought of, and I was so angry thinking about it. Because I thought, oh, really? Am I super annoying on the free show that I do like 4 times a week? I'm so sorry. You know, and it's like you do in life have to let things go, don't you? But sometimes you're more able to than other times. And other times it is a bit of a whack-a-weasel game where you just want to conquer everybody who gives you crazy speed bumps and anxiety. It is what it is. I know everybody can identify with that sentiment. Courtney, I loved the photos of you and Joy. You are such pretty sisters, and you're such nice sisters. I loved seeing them and your mountain of treasures that you made, all the woolen yarns. Amazing. Dave, I finally sent your daisies with a little present in there too. Sorry about the delay. I've been really, really bad. But I'm getting everything out the door. I've got all the orders up to date today, so I'm really pleased with all that. Lisa, good to see you. Happy coffee time. Donna, happy coffee time in Alberta, cold and snowy. Linda, good to see you. Anne, thank you. I am back. Lori, oh, I missed you too. I missed everybody. It was a huge hole in my life not being able to talk crazy like we do in the mornings, looking at books and talking crazy. It's a big part of my day, and it sets me up for a positive day. See, that day of the comment with the slurp, that was the day that we hadn't run coffee time, and that set me right off because I didn't have my feet under me, because I hadn't anchored myself in positive thoughts, positive energy, brainstorming and snowballing, and all of the really positive things that we do. It makes a really big difference. And Kathleen, the crazy train has left the station. It has. Oh, sure thing. So, you know, let me do a few announcements. It's been a while. So let me do a few announcements, which otherwise I will inevitably forget. A few things coming up that are important. Debbie, good to see you in Rochester. So many things coming up now. And even though it's the first day of February, you know, I'm already feeling like I'm way behind because there's all kinds of hook-ins being announced. I've got to sort of centralize that list and get that to you, get that posted everywhere. Our giveaway is coming up. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. I just recorded the video a second ago, and I'm going to put it into this video, so you'll be able to enter to win the book that we're looking at today. That's coming up. The drawing for the current book, so you didn't miss one while I was out, right? Sick and crazy. You didn't miss one. The drawing for book number 2 is going to be Monday, February 7th, so next Monday. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Corey, good to see you. Oh, you too. Thank you. Yeah, so the book thing is coming up. A few other dates on the calendar and adding more quickly. So I was going back and forth with the Green Mountain Guild for a date in November. That's so far away, we're not even going to talk about that. There's a bunch of dates in between, though. Things are popping. So, for example, March 5th is the day, if you are part of the New Hampshire Guild, I think it's the White Mountain Guild, it's called the Woolen Magic Guild. I'm going to be doing a Zoom talk to that guild if you're a part of that on March 5th, and the subject is going to be Alice Butler. I also finished up that article a week ago for Rogue Cooking Magazine about Alice Butler, and the pattern that month will be an Alice Butler pattern. I will have patterns in my shop before then, but just featuring one and trying to get the work of Alice and her son Vic out there for everybody to hook. You know, one of my big overarching things in my life is getting all of those beautiful rug hooking patterns that other people have done that are currently not just not available to the public who love them and want to do the right thing and get them, pay for them and hook them rather than just sneak hook them. Sneak hook, that's one for our lexicon, huh? But, you know, I want to get all of that stuff available. There's lots of different rug hooking stores that carry different people and different lines, and I do too. But there are some lines that still, Alice Butler is not one of them, are copyright contingent, right? Like somebody still owns it somewhere, but they're not actually putting the patterns out. Now that's what hurts my heart, because you think, oh, I would love this pattern, but it's just not available. But the store that owns it is they're still alive and well and everything. They're just not putting that pattern out. And this is the gridlock that makes me nuts. So I'm trying to get in the new year as many important rugs available that can be available. So I'm looking at the Alice Butler rugs. We'll be looking next to the Priscilla Turner rugs. There are a bunch of series of rugs that we are partly aware of or have heard the word or the name that have not been available for either ever or a very long time. So all of that stuff is to be continued. So that talk will be on March 5th, looking at her work and her son Vic. And also I'm working, as you know, with the family. I'm working with the nephew Rob because they also did, well, Alice did a lot of needlepoint. And although we work with sort of a rug medium instead of needlepoint, you know, for me, needlepoint, rugs, hook, Amish toothbrush tool, latch, whatever, sewing needle, whatever tool you're holding in your hand, who cares? If you're making something textile, if you're making some kind of fiber art, it's all applicable. It all crosses over. So I'm real interested in hearing more and seeing more of those needlework and needlepoint designs by Alice Butler, because we're already saying that we would like to turn those into rug hooking patterns and latch hooking patterns, at least. I'm going to make sure that as soon as they're in the store, which will be this month, later in February, all of the designs are available as rug hooking patterns, punch patterns, mini punch patterns, and latch hook patterns. And that's just to get us started, because I feel like there should be some universality with, you know, people liking different techniques of rug hooking or want to try something new. I want to be sure that everything is available as a pattern and or kit for all of those designs in whatever medium you like to work in, right? We're not going to force you to hook if hooking is not your thing. It might be that latch is your thing or locker hooking or something else. And if it is, you should be using the same patterns, right? So March 13th, I'm teaching in person on March 13th, penny rugs at Madison. So I'm going to bring, everybody's going to get the big bags of the penny rugs with the graduated sizes, and we're going to be working on penny rug techniques. That's March 13th at Madison Wool in Madison, Connecticut. Coming up on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday the 2nd and Sunday, this coming Sunday the 6th, the current design-like class for this month. Hello, Crafters Grimoire. Hello, Aileen. Good to see you. Oh, is it St. Bridget's Feast Day today? Oh, how nice. Gosh, I just wish I had more time. I would love to research stuff like that. Remember how I used to have time? And I would like look up what special day it was on the calendar, whether it was an official day, a religious day, a funny day, and often put free patterns out. I haven't done that in so long because I've been so busy. That's something that I never wanted to stop, but I have to make difficult choices these days. And as soon as I'm done with this book project, I am going to get back to at least once a month, choosing a special day of that month and putting out a free pattern. So for people who are, you know, conscious about what you're spending, and this can be an expensive craft, at least get the pattern for free and have fun with the supplies that you have at home already, right? That's, oh, St. Bridget's, that's so nice. That reminds me of being at school so long ago. So March 13th, penny rugs, the MCM, the Mid-Century Modern class starts this Wednesday the 2nd, and again repeats on the 6th. They're independent classes. If you're signed up for it, I sent you the Zoom information. You can log on to either or both. It's fine with me if you want to log on to both. And yesterday I sent out the file of drawings, things that I drew that are going to help walk us through the exercises in this class. This class is almost certainly going to run over time-wise because it was so hard to choose content for this class. I have to say I'm not a big mid-century modern fan with furniture and things like that. I'm much more of a scatterbug. I like a lot of junk, like more Victorian. But with design, I do like mid-century, like two-dimensional design, right? Like I love the flat, smooth graphic lines. I love the curves. I love the cats. I love the crossover to the cocktail menus and Easter Island and tikis. All of that exotica that came in the wake of World War II, right? When everybody who came home from the war immediately dug in, settled in, a baby boomer generation starts, people moving out to the suburbs, people shopping at indoor shopping malls and outdoor plazas, and life was pretty boring, right? Life was pretty boring. People got so much wanderlust thinking about faraway places and travel and exotica, and enters the mid-century modern movement. So in this class, we're looking at a lot of different aspects of design during this era, like the atomic age, right? So from patterning, from flat patterning to creating compositions, we're never going to have enough time to do all the games and exercises I made up. So I'm going to make sure that everybody also gets an enormous photo file that I have a lot of text in. This might be something I just do in the future so that you can go back into it when you're going great guns, like in the future working on a design. You can go back into it and look at the drawings, look at all the references that I'm giving during class, and just start making. When you're feeling it, just making drawing after drawing after drawing until you get something that you feel would be really suited to your rug or your next project. Because mid-century design, without the shading, without crossing, like, every color is laid down in a very graphic way, almost like a silk screen way. There is no blending, there is no ombre. There is just very flat graphic color. So of course that style lends itself really well to rug design. Particularly for people who don't like that sort of fine detail. This is going to be a great class for you. So that's on ribbon candy hooking. I'm not sure if I put the link into this video. I will later, though, with the link to the book. But it is a really, really full class, an inspiring class, very different than anything I've done before. I'm also going to announce, hopefully later this week, the sort of practical class that I'll run in the next month, right, in the next 30 days. We just finished the mandala class Wednesday and Sunday, and that was fantastic. So many great thoughts, great ideas, and great projects started in that class. Some of them finished already. But for this coming month, I'm going to do something very, very different that reflects how excited I am in 2022 about many rug mediums. Always my heart is with rug hooking, as you know, but I like everything. And lately, this book has really put me out of my comfort zone, and I've been doing crafts I have not done for a long time, like the Amish toothbrush, like miniature punch, like felting, felt needle, like so many things that I just literally haven't done for 10 or 15 years, getting really back into them. So for this class, this coming month, I'm going to run a real shake you up class. It is going to be a 3-technique class. And what you will get is a kit with patterns, almost like a repeat pattern, like a Warhol, right? Very pop art pattern. It is going to be a latch backing, and your kit is going to come with all different kinds of materials, right? Including like quilt cottons. It's going to be a class in which we do hooking into latch hook, and locker hook. We're going to do all 3 techniques that work best in the latch backing. And if you think rug hooking doesn't work well in a latch backing, I would say to you, these days I'm doing more with latch hook backing than I am with cloth backings. Just because I love being able to use my difficult fabrics, like my wools that are prone to unravel, that will never full in the washing machine, like my huge collection of paisleys. All of these things look so good in latch backing. You see so much surface area. You're able to pull up big fat loops of materials that otherwise are a nightmare to work with. So I want to do a class that's very different. You'll get 2 tools in it because we'll be doing hooking with the latch. We'll be latch hooking and we'll be locker hooking. So that by the time the class ends, you're going to say, I know how to do all 3 of those things. I might not like all 3. I might not return to all 3, but I know how to do all 3. This is completely demystified. And now I have the confidence to be able to return to this. You can also use all 3 in the one composition that we're working on. So it'll be up to you what sort of balance you want to do. If you say to yourself, enough with these locker hooking strings, I'm done with it, then you can complete the rest of the pattern with either hooking or latch. But it's a nice, I think, chance to try different mediums, right? And I think that's really important for appreciation. And experience, just being more well-rounded as a textile artist. There's a lot to be said, as you know, for latch and macrame, all of these crossovers with weaving and applique. So many things you can do right onto your backing using mixed media. So this class is moving toward that. Is the class a kit? Yeah. So the class will be a Zoom class, and it will come with a kit. So people who sign up for it, I'll send you the kit with the pattern, with the tools, and with all of the fabrics. And because of the nature of the class, it'll be a lot of different types of fabrics. You're going to have a little bit of pre-cut, but I'm also going to give you a gauge, right? So you can wrap your latch material and cut it, so you can make your own latch supplies, and you're not dependent on somebody selling you expensive pre-cut stuff. and you're also not dependent on using materials that you might not like. I like acrylic, but not everybody does, and that seems to be like the general, what's given out with Latch. I'm going to give you lots of hand-dyed wools, right? So there's going to be a real mix of content. When I latch, I typically latch with the wools that I dyed, and they are big, fat, 3-ply bricks and little pieces that come up a charm. They look so lush and beautiful at the surface. And then there's always a question, do I want to clip it way down? Do I want to leave it way up? How Waldeboro will I go? But these are all things that will come up in class, and it will be a lot of fun to try different, to be forced to try things that you wouldn't normally try because you'd say, well, I don't know if I have the right materials and supplies. I'm not even going to start that. I have enough hobbies. Well, this is 3 things that connect to each other that could be very useful in the future when you're talking about what kind of borders you want to do. It's nice to have a locker hooked border on stuff, right? That kind of symmetry, that kind of geometric symmetry on a border is a nice thing to throw into a rug hooked piece. There's lots of crossovers, so we're going to be looking at that this month in that class. We have our first bit of spamming. Woohoo! All right, so you know what? Book of the month, book of the week, I'm sorry, book of the week. There's 2 more after this. We've covered this book before on a cocktail night, I'm sure, and I loved it. So I'm trying to pull up some different angles today. This is just, I think, looking at it again, I think it's my favorite. You know, I say that a lot, but this book has so much in it, right? This is published by Rug Cooking Magazine. They are sponsoring the giveaway, and there will be 3 winners, right? So give me the hot minute after this video to move the video I did to advertise the contest from my phone onto the interweb, and then you can comment on it, and that automatically is your entry. So I asked you in the video, something different this time. Tell me your favorite vacation spot. Give me some ideas, right? Sooner or later it'll be warm again. I don't mean tropical warm, but if that's your vacation spot, I'm always looking for day trips and ideas. I was wondering where people went that was special and kind of traditional for you. So any comment that you leave on that video is an entry, and there will be 3 winners drawn next Monday, February 7th, right? So this is the book, Designed by You by Tamara Pavich, who is just unbelievably strong as an artist, as a writer, as a teacher, really positive, helpful voice. Really inspiring book. And I want to go through it a little bit. I don't know how far we'll get today. I wore the wrong glasses, which is off to a great start, right? But I did my thing where I'm going to stand up now. I did my thing where I put some things that I can share on our screen. So let me just change screens for a minute because I want to talk about some of the, hello Nancy. Hope everyone feeling here from windy Las Vegas. Good to see you. I was just talking about Las Vegas again with my sister. We're so crazy about seeing Barry Manilow. Tamara, let me come to this screen, and you probably can't say anything right now. Let me just pull up image number 1 and unlock it. That's the thing. So if you can in the comment, let me know that you can just, thanks Crystal, let me know that you can see it because I always second guess myself. This image appears on the table of contents. This is a great way to start a book called Designed by You. This is called the Kopp, K-O-P-P, wedding rug. Kopp as in Kate and Joel Kopp, who wrote that classic 1970s book, definitive encyclopedic book on hooked rugs, right? So she's making a reference to that book by calling it Kopp Wedding Rug and this is by the author Tamara Pavich, right? Of Council Bluffs, Iowa, 2009. Now, good, excellent, thank you. One of the interesting things about this image, and she tells us here in the description, she says, the images in this piece, in this rug, come from the folk art book of Joel and Kate Kopp. I used templates to draw it on linen. The circa 1900 image implies the story of a bride standing on her tiny rug, beautiful bridal rug, right? We talk about this sometimes, that beautiful idea of giving somebody a hooked rug as a bridal gift to stand on while they take their vows. Standing on her tiny rug, beseeching a moon-faced being in the night sky. Her groom, who may be real or imaginary, alive or dead, appears in a halo of light, and intertwining vines festooned with hearts connect the pair. So interesting symbolism in this piece. What I really, the colors are perfect. They are so folky, they're so classic. Having that blue cross over to the orangey rust, right? Those are opposite colors on the color wheel. So you know that you're in for a huge success when you put these colors together, right? This palette together, absolutely brilliant. And what I like about this rug is even starting on page 1, she is reminding us that we are able to, I'm going to come back to my original screen, that we are able to pull from in terms of design old rugs, right? Because sometimes we get crazy thinking about, whose commercial pattern should I buy? How much does it cost? Where can I buy it? How do I pay for it? There are so many rugs that are copyright free because they are antique rugs, right? So the maker's been dead, we presume, for 100 years, right? So there are so many antique rugs that you see come and go at auctions that you find online from Sotheby's and past auctions. These are copyright free rugs. So most of the rugs, because the cop book goes into the 20th century, but those 19th century rugs, those I can't think of any exceptions, would be fine to hook, just the way that Tamara has hooked this one. That's great content for you if you're a person who likes that primitive style and you like the old time look of the rugs. It's like a gold mine out there, right? I have lots of videos online, lots of people do, on how to get your drawing onto your backing to get going. But pulling from antique rugs is a great source of inspiration. And it seems like an endless font, right? It's not, it's finite. But at the end of the day, we haven't seen all those antique rugs out there. And for people who are in parts of the country where you don't see a lot of rugs in antique stores and things like that, you can see them online, and you're online now. So sometimes it's fun to just find a nice old image of an antique rug. I sell tons of them at Ribbon Candy Hooking for people who don't want to deal with the transferring the backing and getting that whole thing going. But those are images that you might want to think about hooking because they are beautiful traditional images. I'm not going to do it again, don't worry. Now I'm super self-conscious about that, right? So this book starts out with this great, I've always loved the blues and browns together, Mom says. Though when I was a little girl, my mother would say that camo looked poor to her, like poverty poor, maybe from the Depression era. Probably because, of course, browns and blues are like clothing colors. They're working clothing colors, right? They're not the people during that era that were on any kind of an fixed income or worried about money at all would not be buying things that were pink or fuchsia or red or purple. Not because of sort of luxury laws or anything like that, which were long gone, but just the idea that it was impractical, right? Or even really light fabrics. You see children wearing a lot of light fabrics in terms of costume early in the 19th century, but you see poor children wearing browns, right, and blues and things that made more sense and would have to be cleaned a lot less. So that makes a lot of sense, but things have changed, right? Yeah, my dad used to always, my mom's saying my dad used to always, when we had cocktails and stuff, or when we were sitting in a restaurant, he'd always tease me and my sister because when you're waiting for food and you're a kid, it feels endless. We'd always get our drinks and just drink it all down. And he'd say, oh my God, your belly's full now. You're not going to be hungry to eat the food we just bought. And right until his death, every time we went out to eat, he would sit down and start slurping like that, just as a reminder. It was one of those teasy things that drove me crazy, but I would love for it to happen like any time now because we miss him so much. So this book is about inspiration, and that's why we chose it, right, to use as part of the giveaway month. She immediately starts out with the introduction. You can draw. That's what it's called. You can draw. If you think you can't, if you're sitting there going stubbornly, well, I can't draw. Other people can, but I can't. I'm the only one who can't. You're wrong. You can draw. And she puts beautiful quotes at the beginning of every chapter, like this one that I just love. If you hear a voice within you say, you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. That's Vincent van Gogh. It's so true. I know I read that quote before. It's like, I'm sure I've said this before too, inspirational quotes. Mark Twain, one of his famous quotes was, a writer is not somebody who can write, it's somebody who does write. So in other words, the practice of doing something that you want to do, that you mean to do, whether you think you're good at it or not, makes you that person, right? You figure it out with practice. You start doing it, and you are a hooker, or you are a writer or a painter. It's just the way that it works. You don't wait for permission from some person to tell you that you're good at something. If you do that, nothing ever happens, does it? Nothing ever happens. Life has to be square peg and circle hole. Otherwise, nothing ever happens, right? So she moves on to say generating ideas for rugs, and she comes up with some beautiful ideas. We've seen some of these stories and such. I know I've showed this before, that Christmas card made by Raina Taylor of San Antonio, Texas, based on like a wood block, right? It was like a family wood block from the 60s, I think. And this beautiful image, let me share this with you. Let me switch over here and get image number 2. Wait, let me shut this one first. There we go. And let's look at this guy, image number 2. This is called Gold Star, wool and acrylic yarn on linen, designed and hooked by Trish Johnson of Toronto, Ontario. And it says, Trish specifically suggested this rug as an example of an extremely simple way of generating a design idea. Trish bought a package of little star stickers and stuck them down on a sticky note in a pleasing arrangement. Next, she scanned the image on her computer and enlarged it. There are primary colors, Trish said, red, blue, and yellow, though the yellow is pushed into a gold and the red is lightened up into a pink. You see she's got kind of multi-colors in each star. The acrylic yarn hooked into the backing has gold metallic bits, or yeah, I think it says bits. Trish said, it's important to note that Trish's rugs have been featured in Celebration no less than 9 times. Yet she still loves to use simple designs and explore shapes and color. This is a great one for people who think that they can't draw, right? Because I love the idea of her putting all these little dot stars on a sticky Post-it note and then blowing it up on the computer, right? That's something you can do at home pretty easily. And it makes this beautiful repeat design. And she's, again, using the sort of orange-yellow palette with the blues. This is a quite Van Gogh palette. Opposite colors on the color wheel. That's why the colors are really singing, but great variety. And this is something that you could easily do with cookie cutters, too. You know, I'm a big one for cookie cutters. Simple, simple, simple. So next time you're inclined to say to yourself, I am not an artist, just look at the stuff you have around you. Like people, you know, we've said this before when we look at rug cooking books from the 1910s, the 1920s, when we look at the beginning of Pearl McGowan's career, how it was very typical in those days to use the things you had around you, even a postcard that somebody had sent from a trip, and trace it on your backing and just move it in increments to create a pattern. People used what they had to create patterns and rug cooking designs. And you can do the exact same thing now. You don't have to buy into this culture of needing everything to be done for you. If you're a person who likes to do stuff from scratch, you can do all of this from scratch. In the next section, she moves into this beautiful conversation about beauty and humble things. She shows a coffee cup and a teacup, and she shows this image, which is really pretty. Number 3, let's get rid of this one. It's a game board, Ming check. So this is Chinese checkers, right? Beautiful game board done by Nancy Peterson of Glenwood, Iowa in 2011, number 4 cut on Scottish burlap. She said, this rug is inspired by a vintage Chinese checkers board I picked up at a garage sale. I love the bold graphics of the old game boards. I knew I wanted to make a room-size rug without piecing the backing, so I found a vendor in Canada who was able to supply me with a 6-foot wide burlap backing. I dyed all the wool, matching the colors in the original game board. This is the largest rug I've hooked. I tend to like doing bigger rugs that I can throw on the floor. It took me 9 months. So this is a 5-foot by 5-foot rug. This rug is as tall as I am both ways. That's crazy. Absolutely beautiful. And another great source of inspiration, thinking about things from your childhood, right? Humble things. At the beginning of this chapter, it says bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up in strings. You know, we've said this before at coffee time. Make a list of your favorite things, right? Things that you really like, that inspire you, that you don't want to forget about. That's the thing, isn't it? your work is your memory museum. You want to document all the things, all the people, and all of the stories that have been important to you through the years. So that includes humble things, doesn't it? Because humble things are the everyday things, you know? It's like the big things happen once a year or once a decade, but those humble things happen every day. And, you know, that's part of our lives. And finding something beautiful at a garage sale like an old game board is a nice way to enter into that idea. Joanne and Carol, Chinese checkerboard is fantastic. Yes, thank you, Chrissy. Good to see you. Please thumbs up for our videos. Make it easier for everybody to find them. Other sections, the thing with this book is the whole beginning of the book, the first half, every time you turn the page, it's a different subject, right? That's why I say encyclopedic. It's not ad nauseum. It's like the scope and the variety of subjects that she talks about is outrageously huge and wide and vast. But they're all different and very conversational subjects. So beauty and humble things. And then the next pages are about the natural world. And then the next pages are about arts of all kinds. And in this chapter, she's talking about pulling from different wildlife prints, from Gustav Klimt, famous artists, you know, looking at other people's art through the years and being able to use that in your designing, because this book is about designing. And she uses a beautiful quote from Stella Hay Rex. Do you remember we covered Stella's book? Stella had a 1920s, 1930s, I think it was 20s era rug hooking book that was really beautiful. And then in the 40s, she wrote that second book that we haven't looked at yet that was a comedy book. What the heck was it called? It was a small sort of mini novel / memoir, something hook. It'll come to me. I have it. We still need to look at it. It's not a picture book. It's a story, but it's super cute. So Stella wrote, modify or adapt, and you will come up with some individual interpretation of the original that you will have every right to regard as your own. That is one of these to copyright, because copyright, we talk about, I'm not starting, we talk about it too much, right? And there's so much you can do with images that you love that are not infringing upon copyright law, right? I'm not going to start that because we've talked about this on many shows. But I think that we have been tripped up, cowed, scared to death, and bullied on Facebook about copyright. When at this point in time, I think I've used this as an example, how many people have done cats coming out of pumpkins, right, at Halloween? Limitless, infinite. So if you do yours, you will do yours in your way, right? You draw it in your way, you draw that idea in your way, and nobody can claim to own the idea of a cat coming out of a pumpkin, right? So it's just, you want to open the gates, open your scope up a lot wider, put your net much, much further in terms of inspiration and things that you might want to design. Because anything that is designed and made by you is a reflection of you, and is going to be special and different because you made it, right? Aileen says, the last piece I made used rug hooking, needle felting, and beading. Love being able to use the appropriate technique based on what you need to achieve. Absolutely. And it's always just about information, isn't it? Because the things that we don't immediately have accessible, for example, I was working on a felting project, but I haven't done wet felting. So that's something, it's not different. It's just an added layer of mess, but also great technique. So I have a friend coming over next week, and she's showing me some of her wet felting pieces. Maybe we can roll that into a coffee time episode. That would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? But it's just demystifying. Everything is just demystifying, isn't it? Because chances are you have supplies to do all kinds of crazy multimedia stuff. This is one of the things we talked about in the mandala class, because it started with drawing your design, transferring your design, and beginning to hook your design. And there was somebody in the first class and in the in-person class I did with the mandalas that was having trouble hooking. One time it was because the person was a lifelong crocheter, and there was just an issue with the way she was holding the hook. She could not get away from that crochet sort of ergonomic destiny of holding that needle in a certain way, the hook. And the rug hook was just not working out. So I said to her, you know, do you have a latch hook? Have you ever done latch hook? And she said, I have a few latch hooks. I used to do it years ago. And I said, you know what? You should go get one of the latch hooks, tape down the toggle, use your latch hook in the linen backing. That's what Rochelle LeBlanc does. She uses a latch hook in linen backing. Her work comes out beautifully, right? nobody can question the way you get from point A to point B. You should do it in a way that makes sense, that feels physically right to you in a tactile way, and that comes out in a way that you like it. And outside of that, there really are no rules, right? You figure out how to do it. But first think about all the junk that you already have before you start agonizing about watching more videos and making supply lists. Because we all tend to have a lot of junk, and a lot of it is useful for tweaks and different techniques within the textile art that we love, right? Crafter's Grimoire. China once tried to claim copyright on Our Lady of Guadalupe. Interesting and annoying. That is extraordinary. I don't know how that would ever work. Lisa says, "Wow, love this one. Chinese checkers is my favorite game, and I collect them. The board games are the game boards are absolutely beautiful." I will say with game boards, because Parker Brothers is still around, and a lot of the makers of game boards that might be nostalgic for you are still in business, there can certainly be copyright issues. As usual, I'm going to be naughty and say, if you're making something for your living room wall, Parker Brothers is not going to really, number one, know or come after you. It's just not worth it. If you start manufacturing patterns to sell that are based on games that still exist, and I don't mean the universal ones like probably Parcheesi, Monopoly, Chinese checkers. Those are so general and so old. Any games that came out in the 19th century and earlier, they're probably, unless there's a specific artist that has designed the game board, going to be copyright free. But the things that came out in the 20th century, that's sketchy because many of those companies are still around and have a right to the art, right? Have carried copyrights over through the years. So that can be a little trickier, but it always depends on the game. I have some experience with writing to game companies, and the other day I wrote to Wonder Bread. These people never write back, so that's a bit of a gridlock thing. It's impossible to get replies from people, whether you try them on their websites or write them on Facebook or whatever. It's very hard to get replies from corporate entities, right? So that's a to be continued, and that's a make a good judgment call. And certainly when you're making a good or a bad judgment call, and you put your stuff on Facebook, you hold yourself open to the possibility of people needling you with their opinions of copyright law, which are usually quite wrong, but nonetheless, it can be the kind of thing that wakes you up in the middle of the night. They might be trademarked instead of copyrighted. Yeah, they might be. They might be. The early ones aren't because they're so old. But the 20th century ones, like when I think about the games that I really loved, like the Magnificent Race, that is almost certainly because the art was so specific. Some of those really 1960s, very graphic driven, famous artist style, those are, I'm sure, locked down really well. Whether the game is currently in print or not, I'm thinking they're all locked down. So she moves on to say, but it's always good to check. It's always good to check, and it's a great source of inspiration, right? You can always do your own version of a game, like something that would be so old that the idea of it can't be copyrighted, like Monopoly, like the game of Life, which is actually based on the game Goose, Chutes and Ladders, these kinds of things. If you're not using imagery from the game board and you're just using the structure of the game, like Chutes and Ladders is one of these, through a variety of, or Candyland, right? Chutes and Ladders is like this with ladders coming down. Candyland is another one that can be adapted because it's basically just a broken down yellow brick road, and there's sometimes in some versions of it candy forests and gumdrop trees and marshmallow whatevers. But with a different theme, right? If you, for example, like the mid-century modern theme, and you want to make a Candyland game board that's not called Candyland, that is a path that goes through, and oh, here's Easter Island, and maybe it has a mystical kind of a theme, like, oh, here's Stonehenge, all these different sort of ancient wonders of the world. How cool would that be as a game board, right? You could really, there's so many ideas that you could run with for things that are not trademarked or copyrighted. So games are a great source of that because they're already so playful and have such positive associations and sometimes memories for us that it's a really good starting point. Gotta love the armchair lawyers. I know you do, don't you? It's, oh man. So then she goes on to talk about a stray word or phrase, and she uses a quote by the author Jodi Picoult, who's super, super famous author. Words are like eggs dropped from great heights. That ties into that armchair lawyer thing. You have to be so careful about what your words are and what you say to people. But the context of this is sometimes words are misunderstood. I don't know if you remember this one, but he careth for us, right? Biblical reference. A carrot for us, or a carrot, what was it? Carrot for, a carrot for you. He careth for you. A carrot for you with the bunny and the, right? So childhood misunderstood line that got carried into adulthood with plenty of confusion and later worked out as a hooked rug, which has a very comic theme. So words, whether they are understood, misunderstood, can be a great inspiration for a piece. The wool itself. Here's another great quote from Stella Hay Rex. Flannels, homespun, hard twist worsted, tweed, jersey, even serge, all work together to give beauty and character to the rug surface. So funny how, as a reminder, in these early 20th century books, it was the norm to use many different materials in your hooked rug for the floor, right? People were thinking about making them for the floor. And the idea that it would get worn down in 100 years did not hit the radar. It wasn't even a thought or a thing. So it's funny how contemporary rug hooking books of that time are steering people toward using anything you got. A whole mixture, a whole ragbag variety of materials will make for a more interesting and beautiful rug, because those early hooked rugs were made of tons of different textiles, right? Tons. The idea of now having to buy 100% wool to make your rug is beautiful and for some people ideal. Very expensive, isn't it? Because you know what wool costs a yard, and then once somebody, and I have a store, but once somebody in a store starts decorating it, spot dyeing it, modeling it, doing something to it, the price is going up infinitely, and you need about 4 times more material for your surface than the surface itself. So that can become quite expensive. I think it's liberating and a bit of a relief to think about using some other fabrics in there. Aileen says, and the episode is available through the CBC. Oh, I missed something. Dave said, give a shout out to Crystal Ross. Saw her beautiful story featured on CBC TV Land, Crystal. Crystal, you didn't tell me about this. And CBC TV Land and C. Maritime wool episode. Very inspiring. So is there a link to this or something? And the episode is available through CBC, the letters GEM, GEM app for free. There we go. Great to see the fiber artists being featured in the sheep shearing, yarn making, and rug hooking. So Corey, these are Canadian references, but online you'd be able to access this too. Crystal is one of our best and most talented buddies in this thread here. Crystal does punch needle and really exquisite and extraordinary designs in color, right? Your color palette is one of the things that we know you so well for. And the magazine article came out a few months ago, and now spots on television. This is a big deal. It's growing and evolving as it should. Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Oh, okay. Our Canada broadcaster. Interesting. Would love to see that. Fantastic. I know somebody sent me a link, but I think I just saw you for a glimpse, and I'm thinking it was an ad for a longer thing. So now we know where we can get it. The CBC TV Land, and it's called, CBC TV Land and Sea Maritime Wool episode. That should be easy to Google, right? And Crystal will pop up, right? That is exciting. Thanks, Dave. That's really sweet. I'm glad you said that. We're all going to want to check that out. Susan said, I absolutely agree with you about using different fabrics on floor rugs. For the most part, the backing wore out, and not often was the fabric worn out. That's so true. Wool is very expensive. That's so true. Even things like velvet, even things with very fine piles, whether they're quilts or on the floor, they can get worn out more easily, more fragile materials. But they're there hundreds of years later after being used as a rug. Now, if you're using yours on the wall, you know it's going to be intact for a good long time. So you can feel confident and at peace with using different materials. You should feel like the world is your oyster, and that was a joke, and add, all of the crazy bling that you like. This is something else that I talk about in class all the time. Using, for example, I do a lot with quilt material, right? Because I'm a recovering quilter. Not to say I won't ever do it again, but using that sewing machine is just not for me lately. But I like to rip big wide pieces of cotton fabrics that I have for quilting. I have a lot of batik fabrics and two-sided fabrics. That's the thing, right? And I love to use them in my latch hook backing. I love rug hooking them into my latch hook backing, particularly those kinds of cottons because they're two-sided and I'm not accidentally going to pull up the white side, the back side, because then if you're crazy like I am, that it can't be. It can't be. You got to work in reverse and pull it out and try re-hooking it so that you can see the colored part. But there are so many things that work so well in rug making that there's no reason on earth why you shouldn't grab them all and put them all out on the table. I just Googled it, found Wool Whisperers video on CBC. Thank you, that's great. That's great. How exciting, huh? Crystal, I'm so happy for you. I love you. I'm so happy for you. That's really exciting. And I do have a couple of the magazines left. We'll have to talk about that when I'm less scattered. When will that be? It'll be soon, I promise. So let's look at another image from the Tamara Pavich book. So we were looking at this one. Let me find it. It'll shut Chinese checkers. Let's look at this one. Oh, that's the wrong one. But, oh, okay, I have it in the wrong order. We'll come to her in a second. That's a great one, too. This is the one I meant. So this is a beautiful image. Let me get her a little more. Come on. Really? Really? Welcome to my computer skills. Well, you know what? It is what it is. There we go. So this piece is really astounding. This is by Tamara Pavich, so the author of this book. Imaginary Fringe number 3, 18 inches by 18 inches. And you know, with this one, the topic for this spread is called the wool itself. And she's talking about materials. So you can see that she's using wool strips and lots of very thick, nubby type wool that borders on roving in the way that it hooks, right? So absolutely beautiful, not just around the hair and head, but also in the border. Very different materials at work here. Beautiful color substitution in this piece, but mostly we're focused on the textile part of this. It is so, so good and successful. I want to see what's happening back here. I can see some more comments popping up. I just Googled, okay, yep, rougher wools are good for floor rugs. Yeah, you know, if you're putting your thing on the floor, you really do want something rougher, don't you? You want like a very stable, very durable and sturdy fiber because it's going to be stepped on, right? And tripped over, and the edges are going to take a beating and all of that stuff. So it's a horse of a different color when we're talking about an actual floor rug as opposed to a piece of art. So that's always something to be thoughtful about. She moves on in the next spread, and I'll probably end with this one because I gave you a spoiler of this picture already. Friends who inspire, right? So on the next page, she's talking about your friends being your source of inspiration, and what a great idea that is. For me, the person who springs right to mind is Hetty Van Gerp and her book, Hooked on Tan Cook. All of the people, all of her neighbors on the island who she loves, who she knows, who she immortalized in her beautiful and original rug hooking designs. So interesting, right? So interesting. So inspired by friends, she starts out this part with a quote by Henry David Thoreau that says, "Friends, they cherish one another's hopes and they are kind to one another's dreams." That chokes me up just saying that, because that's the thing, isn't it? Your friends are always on your side and they're always pushing you to do your best, right? Always pushing you to do the thing that they know that you want to do. They're enabling and helping, right? They're not throwing up opposition and crazy speed bumps. So truly, I need this book. You do, Courtney. I'm going to put the link up so you can enter to win. But let's look at this image that she chose for this chapter. It is such a neat one. So I had these out of order, didn't I? Let me shut this one off and come to 5. There she goes. And there we go. Let me see if I can make her a bit bigger. This is just a fantastic image. So this one is hand-dyed, hand-cut, recycled fabrics, cottons, acrylics, and wool on a Hessian backing, burlap. Designed and hooked by Diane Cox of Penzance, Cornwall. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful piece. Quite a character, and you can see, going right along the lines of what we've been talking about in this episode, partly hooked, but you can see that there is a huge element of applique. There is a patchwork garment on this woman, and it is figured in patchwork. She has appliqued actual patchwork pieces to be this woman's garment, right? It's wrapped around the character's body. This looks like such a character. This older lady smoking a pipe. Some of the words are either embroidered or machine embroidered. Kindness, endurance, really positive words. Family. This is just a great crossover piece between hooking and quilting, right? Why not? This is another kind of crossover you can do. Quilting is simply putting pieces of fabric together with a needle instead of a rug hook, right? And these two mediums cross over beautifully. There's no reason on earth why you can't cross them too. But that's just a great use of space, just appliquing that piece of quilted material, establishing the shape, maybe putting a little interfacing under it carefully just to be sure that it has some integrity and it's quite stable, and then just stitching, right? However your stitches are, your loops are going to hide them, just stitching that to your backing, which in this case is burlap, right? Right on there, and then you're just hooking around it. I mean, how great is that? You could even, if you were a real perfectionist and you were a very technical person and worried about the height difference between your loops and the applique piece, you could even pad out underneath the fabric piece, right? The garment in this case, with a piece of felt or something that was also sewn on, just to lift up the surface a little. If you are much more technical than creative person and that kind of stuff bothers you, you could even solve that problem easily by adding a layer of something under the quilting, which is much thinner than the hooks would be tall. So interesting possibilities, endless possibilities of things that you can do too. You love those, Barb. I do too. I love Diane Cox too. I wish there was a whole book about her. I know, Robin, this book has got a lot. Tamara Pavich always covers her. She has passed away, and there's been a lot of events celebrating her life. So I'd like to get more into her work and cover her more on this show. She's been, through her life, until her untimely death, very popular and quite well known in the UK. And she's one of these artists who we occasionally see her as part of a compilation in a book. But she definitely deserves her own book. And I wonder if anybody's working on that. I have some names in my head of people who would be most likely to, like maybe somebody like Heather Ritchie, somebody who knew her personally, is also in the UK, could get the research part under control. Easy for me to just give projects to other people, right? But I'm wondering about that too, because I feel like there has to be some definitive book that's exclusively about her work. She, in my mind, is the queen of the crossover, usually applique and hooking. But she does so many different things, and she goes nuts. In her lifetime, she was crazy about fibers and color, and she went nuts to the extreme with mixing different fibers, and did such beautiful sort of popular culture, pop art style work. Not realism, but lots of substitution of color, lots of impressionist and expressionist type designing. Really extraordinary person. And we'll look a little bit more at some of our other pieces in this book tomorrow on Coffee Time. I'm so glad, Robin. I'm going to sign off in a minute because we never do a half-hour show anymore, do we? There's always so much to say, and there's so many people. Oh, Paula, I didn't see you. Good to see you. There's always so much to say, I don't like to skip over. Oh, Kathleen says, like a Trapunto technique. Absolutely like a Trapunto technique. So with Trapunto, if you're not familiar with that term, Trapunto is traditionally, my mother used to do Trapunto cotton and cotton. You could use any fabric. But you've got two pieces of material, and you've got them quilted together. Quilting means you've got stitches connecting the top and the bottom. And then you go to the bottom, right, to the wrong side, and you cut little holes into a shape. For example, if it was that woman sitting there with her pipe, you were doing the jacket, you cut a little hole under the jacket, and then you'd stuff cotton up into it, right, like loose cotton for a stuffed animal, so that it popped out that whole shape, because you would have stitched around the shape. You would have stitched the shirt with the arms and whatever, and it would have been its own finite and closed and complete shape, and you would have gone into the wrong side to open it up a little bit by making a little hole and pushing some fabric through with a knitting needle or something small, and it would give the front, the right side of the piece, that puffed out. It would be puffed out in that area. And you can choose, almost like stained glass, different compartments of your composition that you could puff out to different degrees, right? Larger compartments, like somebody's jacket, could be really puffed out and three-dimensional. And then smaller areas could be less stuffed, but still have some height, some relief. And then some areas, none at all, right? So this is a great technique also that you could easily work into what we do. Lots of things to think about. And hey, if you are working on something very loose, like possibly linen, definitely burlap, you wouldn't even need to make a hole, right? You could get a very small tool and get right in between the weave and do trapunto from the backside, right? I mean, that would work too. That would work great. Kathleen, that's a great idea. You are a genius. Oh, I'm so glad you're there. Well, I'm sorry to log off because I know some people are coming in toward the end, but the video is there for you. I'm about to post the link. It'll be on the Ribbon Candy Hooking channel in case you don't find it here, but I'm about to post the link for you to win a copy of this book. 3 copies will go out to the 3 winners next Monday. And just tell me on the video that I post, not this one, your favorite vacation place, something else that I can learn about you. And otherwise, I will see you tomorrow, Wednesday, for coffee time, and we will continue looking at this great Tamara Pavich book. In the meantime, have a great day, everybody. It's great to be back. It's great to see you. It's great to reconnect. Possible name of the book was Rug Maker's Journey. Yes, that's another one. Barb, that's great. That has a lot of the Diane, God, why did I just lose it? I know she's in Penzance. Hang on. I can't sit with that. What is wrong with me? Cox, C-O-X. Yeah, that has even more than this book of her work. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to have to brainstorm on that too, because I know I've seen her work lately in other places too. I'm trying to think of what books those would have been, because we cover so many books. And I do wonder, and I wonder if I'm able to find out whether there is something real comprehensive coming out on her life's work, as there should be. So we'll champion that until we get an answer on that. And if not, one of us will have to write it. You are welcome, Becky. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day until then. We will continue on with